you've just bought the new DJI RC2 for the DJI Air 3 or the Mini 4 Pro, then I'm going to take you through all the feature settings and all the buttons so you don't have to go through the manual. So if we look at the structure of this, it's a similar size to the old RC. It's a little bit thicker, it's a little bit heavier, and there's some obvious differences where it's got external antenna here. Otherwise the button layout's the same. It's the 5.5 screen that's 700 nits brightness, and you'll notice the buttons are exactly the same. You've got the C1, C2, and you have your tilt for the gimbal and your zoom button here, and record and photo buttons here. You've got your screw-on controls here that clip in the back, and you've got your home button, your pause button, your on button, which you hold down once and then hold down again for 4 seconds. You've got your cine mode, normal mode and sport mode here. You have your LED lights. There'll be a red one for when it's on, and then 4 green ones showing you full battery or less. When it's connected to your drone, they'll all be lit up green. Here you have a couple of threads where you can screw in these for attaching a lanyard. You'll notice here as well there's a grid for the fan. This is where the audio sound comes out. There's only one USB-C port here. That'll take an audio signal and for charging, and this is where the SD card goes. To use audio with this device, you could use something like the DJI mic with the USB-C connector on here, and you will just pop that in there. And if you want to do a recording, you swipe down twice and you can see there's a record button there that you press, and this will start recording. This is really good for doing screen recordings if you're doing tutorials, or if you're out filming and you want to do a little voiceover, you can do that. Just going through the startup screen here, there's a couple of functions we won't go into on this tutorial, but we'll just drop down to the bottom left hand corner, which is albums. If you click on that, and in here you can view your different albums. Besides that, so you've got Sky Pixel, but most importantly we've got profile here. So if we click on that, this now brings up this information screen. Because I've already connected myself to my DJI account, you can see on the left you'll have your account name, and if you click the more button you can see your flight log, which is very useful if you've had an incident like a flyaway and you need to report it to DJI support. They can see what path and what happened at the time. Starting at the top here is device management. You can see your different drones, and if you click on them, it'll give you information on those drones like the serial numbers, an aircraft number, flight controller number. And just dropping down, you've got DJI Forum, the store, but you have Find My Drone here, and you can set it so it starts flashing and beeping. And here you have offline maps. So in this function, you can select a map, you can zoom in on a certain area, it'll create a white box around it. You can save that and it'll be in your downloaded maps. We have got a tutorial on that. If you go to our playlist, you'll find that if you want to know more about that. Then just dropping down to settings, you'll notice on the left hand side it says firmware update. You can click there to see if there's any new updates you need to know about and sync them to your controller or your drone. Sync flight data, if you've got that switched on, that's where you'll be able to record what's happening on the drone, the flights you've done, and that's what I just showed you in the previous screen under more. Camera view on, flight tips, just leave those on. Storage location, it shows you your internal storage and your SD card and how much space you've got left. Just note that any screen recordings will go onto your internal drive only, and you have to manually move them to the SD card to take that out and put into your computer to download any screen recordings. Even though it gives you the choice of recording onto the internal or the SD card, it doesn't actually work like that. I've raised this issue with DJI. We've had a lot of communications, and they say with this RC, because it does have 32 gig of internal storage, then it will use that, which seems to be pointless being able to put in a 256 gig SD card in here. There's also a real strange quirk of how you move those files, so I'll just quickly show you that. Where you swipe down twice, you have to go to the cogs in the top right hand side, you go to storage, then you go internal storage, you go music, you click on the headphone symbol, then you can go to the 3 lines top left hand side, and then you can click videos, and then you can see your different folders that have video recordings in them. So for example, if I go to movies, there's a screen recording in there, and I need to hold my finger down on that. I can click move to, go to the 3 lines, I'll choose Android. I've created a folder here called SD card recordings. Click move. Now when I go to those 3 lines, I hit video, it'll show you SD card with those files on it, and you'll notice that other folder with movies that I took that out of has now disappeared from there because there's no files in there. So now that recording is on the SD card, I can now back that up to this computer. Coming out of that screen, if you go to the right hand side, you've got connection guide. There's some tips on starting your drone up, and you can go to camera view. And there you can now navigate all your other functions. But firstly, before we start up the aircraft, we'll just swipe down twice. And that's where at the top there, you can see we can connect to our Wi-Fi. You just hold your finger down on that. That'll open up the Wi-Fi settings. You'll see your home Wi-Fi there. You click on it, put in your password, and you're connected to your Wi-Fi. You can see Bluetooth, screen recording, screenshots, airplane mode. Never sure why that's there, because I'm not likely to start this up in an airplane. You may want to mute it. And then you've also got the screen brightness and the loudness of the audio. Okay, so let's just start up the drone. So for the purpose of this, we're just going to use the Air 3. Now, starting in the top left hand side, you can see at the moment it says N mode. If I switch this over to C, which is cine mode, it will say C mode there. S for sport mode. The thing to note that whatever mode you've got it in, this will launch in normal mode. So if you've got this in cine mode and you launch this and you think you're flying around in cine mode, you're not, because it's automatically starts up in normal mode. So you're better to leave this set to normal mode, get your drone airborne, then switch it to whichever mode you want to use. So coming along the top, it's saying caution no GPS, because we're indoors and GPS signals are very weak by nature. Coming along, it says 65 there in the green circle, and that's the amount of battery percentage you've got left there. And then you've got the minutes and seconds, which means how long the batteries will run for. Because it's not in the air, it's got nothing to calibrate against, so it's just giving me zeros at the moment. And then RC signal, obviously they're very close, it's very strong. So that's the next symbol. Next one just tells me the position of any satellites. Next one along tells me how many satellites are connected. Then we've got 3 dots that gives me the other screen with all the controls, but we'll just come back to that as we move round this screen. The next little white rectangle there showing me that I'm in video mode. If I just click on that, you can see it saying video, and I can have normal, night mode and slow motion. So then I can click into camera mode and you can see the symbol on the right hand side. It's changed to a little rectangle that is symbolizing camera mode, and then different options come up for single, the multi-exposure shot A/B burst, where it will just take a series of shots, and then timed shots. I've created a video on photography for using this controller, which you can see on the channel. Then dropping down we have master shots and quick shots. They'll only show the other options when they're in the air, and I have created individual videos for using both those features, so you can check that out to get more detail. And hyperlapse, it's showing you the options here. We have free, circle, course lock and waypoints, and you'll notice if I drop down to the bottom right hand corner where it says auto, if I put that on pro and then I click symbols beside, you'll notice I've got now some options of changing the ISO, the shutter and the EV values, and I've got a pop-up screen now where I can change the white balance, whether it's JPEG, RAW, the aspect ratios, resolution, and where you want the files to store. Now if I come back and I put that into video and I drop down to Pro mode and click on that, I can do similar things, but with the pop-up it now will give me slightly different options for the video. And there I've got my color modes as well as normal, HLG and D-Log there. You can see 1x and 3, so that's the wide angle, the 24mm, and then 3 is for the Air 3, which is the 70mm lens on the Mini 4 Pro. Obviously it won't have that. And then the red buttons, clearly the record button or take a photo button. And then you've got autofocus and manual focus there. Then the button below is the play button, which will bring up the photos or videos that you've taken. So you can view those. So skipping along the bottom, we've got, you see it says H and D, that's the height the drone's at and the distance it is from you. And then you've got your navigation. So at the moment it's in compass mode, and you can minimize that, enlarge it. And then you have the compass direction on the top right left hand side. And then you can switch over to map view. With map view, if you tap on it, it'll fill your screen with the whole map, so it'll help you navigate. And again, you can touch zoom in, click the map, and it'll switch the view back over. Just coming around on the left hand side now, you've got the takeoff button. So if you click that, it says takeoff. If you touch it and hold your finger down, it'll fill with a green line, and then you take your finger off, it will launch to 1 meter. When you want to return home, do the same thing. Because it's already in the air, the return to home, RTH, symbol circle will be there, and you do a similar thing and it will return back home. Coming out of that, just above that is waypoints. So you can click the arrow to expand out the rectangle there, and it will give you your waypoint options. And when you're in the air, you can click your C1 button and that will create a waypoint. If you hit the 3 dots on the right hand side, it will bring up lots of options where you can tell the drone or the gimbal what you want it to do at each individual waypoint. Tap those squiggly lines again to come out of that. Now if we come up to the 3 dots in the top right hand side, that'll bring down our main menu here. So at the moment it's in safety. So just going through here, you've got flight assist, which is the obstacle avoidance. At the moment that's set at bypass, which is probably the most common way of having it. But if you're flying indoors, you might want to have it on brake, so that when it comes to an obstacle, it will just stop. Just dropping down, you've got bypass options. Normal, it'll just smoothly move around objects if it's in bypass. Nifty means it'll come much closer 2 obstacles and it will drift around them quite naturally, but there's a slight risk of an accident. Display radar map, clearly we want that on, which we saw before. Advanced return to home, RTH. Optimal means it will find the shortest and best and safest route back to where it took off. Preset means you can determine what you want it to do, i.e. return to home altitude that you might have set to somewhere obviously below 120 meters. You might have set it to 50 meters and you want it to follow that instruction. That's where you set that there. Update home point, which is obviously useful if you're cycling a bicycle, you've got your drone following you, you've moved your home point and you want to update the drone, so if there's an issue it will come back to where you last were. Maximum altitude, return to height somewhere below 120 meters. Maximum distance, at the moment this is saying no limit, but you might want to guarantee that you've got a better chance of keeping visual line of sight, and you might want to set that to 500 meters or 1,000 meters. And you can calibrate the compass or the IMU, and you can calibrate that here, which is a good idea to do from time to time. Once you have calibrated it, you should do a short test flight in a safe environment and just try out all the controls and the stability of the drone. Just dropping down, you've got battery info. As you can see, it will tell you the charge in your different batteries and how many cycles they've had. Auxiliary LED, I'll just leave that to auto, the same as the aircraft front arm LEDs, because you want them to act as they naturally should do and program to. Here you've got unlock geo zones, so if you've gone to the DJI website, to the FlySafe, and you've done an unlock, this is where you'll find it's showing up here and you can sync it to your drone. This is where if you've lost your drone, you can click find my drone, and then in advanced safety settings, you can tell the drone what you want to do when it's lost, whether you want to just descend or to do the return to home action or hover in place. Normally one would leave it to return to home. If you're set it off when you're on a boat or something, you might not want to do that, or if you're flying indoors you won't want to do that because you don't want this to suddenly go up to 100 meters. You might want it to just hover in place. Emergency propeller stop, it's important to be able to do that because if you have, for example, a flyaway and it's flying towards a crowd of people and you want to just cut the motors, then you can follow these actions. If anyone else is using the drone, it's important that they know this too, in case they're doing a maneuver and they accidentally do this and it will drop out the sky. Just moving over to controls, units I've just left as metric. Subject scanning, this will only work with the drones actually in the air, but this will automatically identify people's cars, boats, etc. It'll put a little green square by them and you can just click on that and it will automatically select them. Otherwise you need to draw a square around them. Gain and expo tuning is where you can fine tune how you want the drone to respond. Normal and sport mode, I leave them as they are. In cine mode I will create adjustments because I want it to move really smoothly in cine mode. I know I can speed it up and go to normal mode. So you can change, for example, your horizontal speed. I've dropped it down to a meter per second, and that just means it will go forward very smoothly and slowly to give very cinematic movement. Same with the ascent and descent. Maximum angular velocity, the higher the value indicates a faster angular velocity of the aircraft when pushing the yaw left and right. So I've lowered that right down, so when it's yawing, it's going to do it very smoothly. Brake sensitivity, I've kept that quite high. So expo is the effect on the joysticks when you're going up and down yawing or pitch and roll. And again, I've lowered those right down because I want it to respond slowly and smoothly. Just dropping down from that, in the gimbal mode, you can do the normal follow me, or you might want to do the FPV. Then you can calibrate your gimbal. So we can do auto. Just make sure it's on a stable surface. We'll just perform some small maneuvers and just make sure that it'll be nice and horizontal. Calibration successful. Just dropping down from there, you've got stick mode. So these are the sticks. If you want to change what they do, you've got options of mode 1, 2 and 3. In mode 2, the standard mode, the left hand stick, if you push it forward it'll ascend, backward it'll descend, and then turning it right and left like so. And the right hand stick, it will be forwards, backwards, and then slide to the right, slide to the left. If you want to customize that, you can click the custom button, and then you can drag those different icons into different places to customize how you want all these to maneuver. You can't drag this over to this side, but you can drag them from to the right, to the left, up and down. Button customization, it's so you can customize what these different buttons do. The only ones I tend to change are these two here, and I've got C1 as exposure lock because I find that's very handy to be able to just quickly get to that. And this one I've changed to cruise control. The rest of the ones personally I've left as they are. Then just dropping down, you've got RC calibration, and then flight tutorial should you want to have a look at that. Coming over to camera mode. Now this will depend whether you're in photo or video mode. So we're in video mode at the moment. So therefore the video format, you can see at the moment we've got it set as MP4. And then color mode, you have normal, HLG or D-Log. D-Log being the flat profile, which is really nice when you want to do color grading. I'll often, if I'm doing tutorials, I'll just leave this as normal. Coding format, you can choose your H.264, H.265, depending on what you're used to working with or what softwares you work with. Video subtitles, we'll just skip that. And then anti-flicker, just left it auto. Again, peaking levels and exposure warning and grid lines I would normally have on for my use. For tutorials, I'll keep all that switched off so the screen's not cluttered with information. Then you can choose your manual white balance here and storage locations. Nice feature here is you've got custom field naming. So if you've got multiple drones, then you can custom name the folders and the files so you know which ones they're from on the computer. And then you've got different options of clearing the cache. I will now just show that if you're in photography mode. So now you can see we've got our JPEG and RAW options, the ratio, resolution, and then the similar options there. Going over to transmission, we don't need to do much here, just leave it in dual band and it'll just make the best choices to get the best connections. You do have an option at the top here for live streaming, so you can just put in your RTMP codes in there to be able to live stream your footage. And then in the about section here, you've got the name of the product you're using, the app version and your firmware updates and your RC and aircraft firmware updates, and then your serial numbers for the battery, aircraft and RC. So it's always really useful to know where that is should you need it for any applications if you're flying abroad or you've got an issue, you need to let DJI know what they are. That's an easy way of finding them. And that's it. That's the full tour of the RC2 controller. I hope you found that useful, you've learned a lot, and if you're interested in any of this equipment, then there's links in the description below. If you want to know more about this controller or drones, there's a playlist over here. Show me the love, subscribe to the channel up there, and I will see you over there.